which need her to take a little bit more time off work, which has to have her coping with different responsibilities.
Sure.
Women too are also at war with fulfilling those needs and desires which society also wants them to fulfill, and versus, you know, my career, etc. So there is a...
So I'm interested, are there, I mean, has there been any kind of work done with regards to defining those yardsticks in the corporate sense?
A lot of studies have been done.
Yeah.
In fact, meaning there is a study done by Dr. Maitri Wickramasinghe and another doctor from the Peradeniya University, where they have looked at gender in the workplace, and they've actually formulated some guidelines that companies can adopt so that there is a gender...
Actually, my question was a bit different. Is there been any work done to capture that value of what you said, of what they bring into a company, yardsticks that you can measure, for example, the value that a woman brings in,
Okay. All right.
as opposed, because you did point out that you can't measure these things.
Okay, there was, meaning I recall reading some study done by, I'm not sure whether it's the UNDP, but they had analyzed corporates in America, and they had seen companies which had more than 2 women on the board. They were significantly better performers than other companies which had 1 or less. You know, as so much as 30% better results in terms of profits, top line, growth. And there are certain things that they discovered, that customers preferred women as being part of sales teams. They felt that there were certain roles that could be better managed by women in those companies.
Would that also be sexist, though, in a way?
I don't think you need to think of anything being sexist, because it also depends on, you know, a man could be more womanly in the way he manages, and a woman could be more manly in the way she manages. So I think we mustn't get caught in this defined roles. I think we need to see of how you serve the customer and what the customer responds to, if you want to.
But you've also, I mean, spoken about this in the sense that you've quite clearly said that in times of financial crisis and difficulty, that women bring a unique set of value to a corporate entity, and that they're better able to manage a financial crisis, as it were.
Why?
Yeah.
Yes, I think how?
Basically.
Meaning, I think women look at long term, and not necessarily short term. They have coping skills. They are better able to sort of face difficult situations and know that they have to ride it through.
So they're survivors.
Yeah, they're survivors. Meaning, I suppose you could say that.
Yeah.
And meaning everybody, meaning we are a matriarchal society, and you know why you continue to exist is because there's a strong woman in the household. So I see that it works both for corporates as well as normal life.
Now, this negotiation in the corporate world is something that you've taken after retirement into more fulfilling, I would argue, work outside the corporate circles and with the environment, for example. And you are now associated with the Environmental Foundation, EFM.
Yeah.
And what do you do there?
I am the chairman of the board, and we have a board of 9. We are honorary board, and we meet once a month. Now, we are a non-profit organization. There is not a lot of funding that is available for the environment. So we have a very good team that works on their specific areas: communications, scientists, lawyers, etc. But there is no one person to hold it together. We can't afford an executive director. So the chairman has to play that role, but I play it in a way that, you know, I just give guidance and not get involved in operations, because I think it helps the team, because they are also getting skills that they will help them in the future.
I mean, it's an interesting thing, isn't it? At the end of the day, EFL is known for some very progressive public interest litigation, which is trying to build national legislation towards the protection of the environment. Whereas if you take your earlier life, if I may call it that, there have been some voices that say that legislation is not the way forward. For example, working towards gender equality in the workplace, where there might be better progress made between negotiation in a company and that legislation might actually be to the detriment of small and medium enterprises, SME sector. So, I mean, in a sense, I mean, you're on the one hand now you're trying to get
Using
legislation,
the law,
using the law,
Yeah.
and in the earlier life you're trying to suggest that the law might not be the best way forward, but it might be through other ways. I mean,
I think legislation has to play a part also,
Sure.
because you have to build norms. Others, if people don't have rules, they have no sort of boundaries. At the same time, you know, you can have law and it could be well written on paper, and you could do something completely the opposite.
which is what is happening with the environment, I would imagine.
True, and meaning getting back to the issue of gender, meaning companies need to take that on board and adapt it and implement it and advocate that these are the right ways of doing it. And when that happens, only legislation becomes alive.
But isn't one argument that has been expressed saying that for smaller entities and enterprises, that the cost of implementing that legislation might be burdensome and might be, you know, in a sense, self-defeating? I think that's the argument that's being made, and that for them, for those entities, it's better for them to negotiate those differences inside without having an overarching, overbearing legislation, you know, saying that this is what you need to do.
You know, Sanjana, I think you have to be a little bit more specific there, because, you know, you can't apply it to all sorts, meaning hours of work.
Sure.
You know, obviously
Absolutely.
you can't say it's cost-effective.
But can you legislate, for example, the number of women in a board?
No. I think sometimes this is the whole thing about, you know, diversity and ensuring it and having a conformative policy. It may help sometimes at the outset, and the benefits are only going to accrue or not accrue over time. So somebody has to take the plunge, and you know, if people feel that it's necessary to do that, I don't know of any countries who have done that, that sort of affirmative thing. But sometimes corporates take it on themselves and say, this is our policy. We will always include 2 or 3 women in our teams, in terms of governance. And I think increasingly companies want to look good in the eyes of their customers and their consumers and their other stakeholders, and they bring in these things, meaning even on the environmental thing, meaning you're talking about organic food or carbon emissions reduction. People want to associate themselves with brands and companies that advocate positive policies in those.
When you resigned from MAS in 2003, you wouldn't have been bereft of choices that you would have done in terms of work or consultancies or whatever, and including time with your family. In choosing EFL and in choosing Sunera now and the other work that you do, what has been the determining factor?
When I decided to leave work, actually I have to go back to 2001 when my young son started school. I was working a full-time job before that while my kids were young, and I decided very long time ago, meaning when I was 20 and I said I want to retire at 40, that I would take a step back, and at that time Mahesh wanted me to start off a corporate office, which I had been doing at MAS. So I said, if I can work half day, I can. So I did. So from 2001 to 2003 I worked half day, but you know what started off as half day slowly expanded, and I realized that, you know, maybe this is not the answer.
Work
and it was not the work that, it was the job that grew, and the company needed a full-time person. So I said then I would leave, and I moved on. And at that time I thought, I don't want to get a employment, because I knew that sometimes these things expand, and I said I want to give my time to other things. So one of my good friends was at EFL, and they needed somebody with a finance background. He made a compelling rationale and case to me on why I should join, and it was nice because I want to live in Sri Lanka, and I want this environment to be right for my kids and all the other kids that are living here. And I said, okay, I will give time. And it was time as in like a board meeting once a month. Sunera also was the same. Again, it was not that extensive time. And I thought, you know, I have management skill. I want to be involved. My kids are still at school. So in the morning times, I would like to use my time usefully and give back maybe.
Is there